All right, we are now moving into another campaign. We will proceed. We will proceed with the same format. We will ask Mr. Duerr if he would open up with a 3-minute opening, and of course we will then have Mr. Harris follow, and then we will proceed with questions.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me down. My name is Jeremy Duerr. I am currently an assistant district attorney in Alexander City. I have been in the DA's office for just a little over 12 years now. I'm born and raised resident of Alexander City. I have a 3-year-old son who keeps me, along with this campaign, keeps me pretty much running so fast that I'm not sure how much sleep I usually get per night. But like I said, I've been in the DA's office now for about a little over 12 years. I've tried every kind of criminal case there is. I've had roughly 175 to 180 jury trials over that 12 years. I've practiced or tried cases in every courthouse in the circuit, including some in this building here. And my main focus is that to tell the people that in the forums that I come to is that, you know, I don't have any control over all of the other offices in the DA's office right now. All I can say that I've ever had control over was Alex City office. And yes, we do have a backlog of cases in Alex City, and I can get into this later, but we're going to always have that backlog. I'm not for sending everybody straight to prison. Of course, there are some people that commit such heinous crimes, they deserve to go to prison and deserve to go to prison for a long time. But in Alex City, in Tuskegee County, we have started a drug court program and a community corrections program that has, what that does is decrease the number of people that once they come in and plead guilty to a crime, that they are not shipped straight DOC to prison. They're actually, they stay in the county, and what you would want to say is like a super duper type of probation. I know that Chairman Maxwell has been up and he has seen how our community corrections program has worked and has talked about possibly doing that down here, and I would be all for that, getting that going down here. And I guess that's about it.
Good.
My name is Bill Harris. I live up in Valley, Alabama, in Chambers County. The 5th Circuit here has 4 counties. So we're actually running, Jeremy and I are, in Chambers, Randolph, Macon, and Tallapoosa counties. This debate will probably be a little different than any debate you've ever seen, in the fact that Jeremy and I have known each other for several years. We are both good friends. There's not been one negative word about an opponent from him or from me, and you won't hear it tonight. We just don't do it that way. We've got some different ideas about the best way to address some of the issues in the district attorney's office, but if you want to hear anybody talking bad about the other one or getting personal, you're not going to hear it here tonight. This is our 3rd one together? 3rd, yes. Yeah. So that's where we are with that. I like to just get that out up front. I'm in private practice. I've been in private practice for about 11 years. Started my own firm, and it's grown, has 3 lawyers in it now. It's been very successful, and I'm very proud of that. We worked very hard for that. Prior to that, I was in law enforcement for 25 years and did literally 5 criminal cases during that 25 years at state level and a lot of them in federal court. A lot of them were narcotics cases. That was sort of my forte, but I've been a supervisor in law enforcement. I've been management in law enforcement and had to figure budgets and stay within that budget. And of course, had to do that when I got in private practice because I didn't have anybody paying the light bill for me. We had to make the money to pay the light bill. And in our 11 years in private practice, we have been in cases against some of the largest entities in the United States. We've actually had cases against FEMA, and we won that. We've had cases against some of the largest insurance companies in the country. And I'm proud to say in that 11 years, we've never lost a case. Never lost one of those civil cases. law enforcement years, I was averaging anywhere from 150 to 200 felony cases a year that I personally did, was over. And a lot of those involved multiple agencies and multiple jurisdictions and many different officers. And I would have to handle all the evidence, do all the paperwork, make all of those cases. And I did that for 25 years. And in that 25 years, I think I lost 3 cases doing that many a year. I've actually done some work here in Macon County years back, some narcotics work down there. So I bring to the table the law enforcement background as well as my legal practice. So I think that's a unique quality that I've got, and that's one of the things that is different between Jeremy and I. Jeremy's a good prosecutor. You're not going to hear me say anything good about him. I like him. If I win, I hope he stays. That's the kind of folks I want. You know, I'll just be very open and honest about that. However, I think I can bring something to the table that most lawyers can't bring to the table because of my previous experience. The main function of the DA's office, when you cut through all of the other things, you got bad check units, you got victims of successful addict. I have a lot of contacts in those areas, and I would like to bring that. I'd like to ask y'all for something.
Okay. All right. Since we are all buddy and chummy, let's get into this. I mean, there has to be some issues that you consider paramount in addressing the district attorney's office. Mr. Duerr, what are they, and then what uniquely qualify you to address those issues that you will articulate?
Okay. Well, like I said, I've been in Elliott City in the DA's office for 12 years now, and you know, there's always in all these debates there's questions about the backlog of cases, and you know, well, why does some people have to sit in jail for much longer than other people before their case comes to trial? All right. Well, let me go on and say this. And the only example I can give you is just in Elliott City this past month and a half, I had roughly 450 indictments returned from the grand jury. Okay, so that's 450 cases. And then I just went through a trial term in this circuit. Every courthouse is the same, or every county is the same, where you have 2 weeks of trial terms twice a year. So I just had 10 days of trials earlier this month, okay? So, and at the best, the absolute best, or quickest, I should say, that one jury trial takes is 1 day. That's going in, identifying the case to the jury, questioning the jury, striking a jury, doing all your evidence, state and defense, having a verdict, is at least 1 day. So at the most, and it's never happened in my 12 years, but at the most you could knock out 10 cases out of that 450. And you're going to have some pleas that are going to go through, but to do that, I mean, to say that there's not ever going to be a backlog, that, you know, that would have to mean that I would have to come in then and say, all right, well, I'm going to take your case and I'm going to dismiss it. I'm going to try your case, but I'm going to dismiss yours and yours and yours until I can get down to a zero. And that's just not going to happen. The way I do my trials in Elliott City, and if I'm elected, that I will assure you that they will be done the same way through all my assistants, is that, all right, when we start the term, all right, we go to jail cases first. We start with the oldest jail case. We knock that out. And we keep going in that order. If we finish all the jail cases, then we go to the bonded cases, and we start those, oldest one we can. And I specify that we can because there's always an attorney that, you know, has a vacation or has a conference. There's always a witness. And give you an example of mine. Every one of my fall terms is during fall break in Elliott City, and every one of my spring terms is during spring break in Elliott City. So I'm always having teachers or policemen that have families that they can't do it a certain day. So when I say the ones that are available, we start with the oldest ones that we can, and we work that way. And And that's how I will do my best to make sure, make sure specifically that every one of my assistants practices that way. And that way we try to get the people that are in jail first done, so they're either not guilty and can go home, or they're found guilty and they're sent home.
All right. Mr. Harris, again, the same question to you. I'm sure that you have some priorities. I want to know how do you plan to address those, and what qualifications do you have that uniquely position you to address your priorities?
The backlog of cases has been one of the primary issues in this race. And when we're talking about a backlog, I agree with Jeremy that you will always have somewhat of a backlog. In Chambers County alone, there are over 1,000 cases right now pending. Some of them 30 years old. 30 years old, and they've never been to trial, they've never been disposed of. That's the problem I'm talking about. Yes, you're always going to have some cases that run over from term to term. That's just what he said. You've only got 2 trial terms a year. They're for 2 weeks. You can only get what you can get done. But those older cases that have been sitting there for years, that's part of the problem. Right now in the Fifth Circuit, the average from the time of arrest to the time of trial is 3 to 5 years. And it's not like that in any other circuit in this state. Nowhere else in this state is it that long. Now, if you can eliminate that backlog, clean up that docket, that's going to make that move quicker. And there's 2 ways that needs to be done for these old cases. All these older cases need to be, all of them pulled, re-examined, and see if they're still viable. Your main witness may not even be living anymore in the case that long. Your victim may not want to go forward anymore. I mean, it may be where the case file is gone. You know, there's a multitude of reasons that the case would not still be viable. And if they're not, they need to be taken off the docket. We need to dismiss those cases, those old cases like that. And we need to start with the ones that are the oldest and come forward and get rid of all of that junk. The second way you eliminate it, the backlog, is the way you get guilty pleas is you have good cases. You go in with a strong case, a defense attorney's going to look at that case and he's going to say, I'm not going to roll the dice. If the evidence is overwhelming, and that's what you've got, and they get all of that in discovery, they know exactly what your evidence is before they walk in the courtroom. They're not going to do that. They're going to try to work out the best plea they can for their client. That's where I think the law enforcement experience comes in that would be such a help, because that's the kind of case you need to go forward with. You don't need to go forward with a case until you've got that evidence where you know you're going to get a conviction if you go to trial. That's how you win. And whether it's civil law, whether it's criminal law, I've been doing it a long time, that's how you win. That's how civil cases get settled, and the insurance company looks at it and says, hey, we're not going to take this, we're going to pay for this person's damages. That's how you win. Same thing with criminal stuff. If you've got overwhelming evidence in there, and they look at that, they're going to try to negotiate a plea with you. So that's how we're going to get rid of that backlog. And once you get it manageable, the backlog that Jeremy was talking about that bleeds over a little bit from trial term to trial term, you know, you're always going to have that, but you're not talking about thousands of cases at that point. You're talking about making it more manageable, which will speed up the time from arrest to trial, and get that done.
There's such thing as prosecutorial discretion. Obviously, you know, crime is crime, obviously, but there's certain crime that is more of an issue for a prosecutor than others. What crime do you think that you focus on the most, and what would you look at alternative ways of dealing with, which would be the least?
Okay, so which ones do I focus on the most, and then alternative ways of the least?
Yes.
Okay. Well, like, I mean, you can ask anyone, including any of my circuit judges, or everybody's circuit judges, around my heart and my passion in dealing with trials or cases that involve minor children. And now that we finally got a law that helps with this, but exploitation of the elderly. That's the two that I put my heart and soul in the most. Several years ago, I had a case involving a 6-year-old little girl sexual abuse case that I was arguing my issue, and it's the closest that I've ever came, I think, in my life going to jail, because me and the judges did not see eye to eye, and I was not going to give it up, but I finally did. I think it was finally because the boss man said, you know, kind of sit down. But that's the kind of cases that, and, you know, no matter, like Mr. Harris said, you know, you can have a good, solid case with a confession and video and pictures. People just don't believe those cases because of the repercussions that they have of sex cases like that, because they have to register as a sex offender. They have to, you know, their photo goes all over their neighborhood and in the stores and in the schools, and they can't live in certain places, they can't work in certain places. But, and no matter how good that case is, 95% of the ones I've ever had, that's the trials that I have, because they just don't want to plead to it. They say, well, I'm just going to take the chances. Maybe I can have one juror that'll lock it up. That's my most passionate cases. Now the least, I guess, on the other end of the spectrum, I think, make sure, if I'm doing this wrong, tell me, okay, so I can start over. But, and I think that is more of the drug cases. Drugs, yes, they're bad, they're terrible, and I would say that if some kind of study could be done, that probably 90% or even greater of all the crime that we do have falls back to drugs one way or another. Whether it's, you know, a drug possession or a drug distribution, or you come home and your door's been kicked in and your TV and your stereo and your electronics are gone. Most of the time that I've dealt with is that's somebody that's coming in your house because they're now out of money, and they're going to steal your TV and take it to the dope house and get another fix. And that's what I have enjoyed most about the program that I spoke earlier, the drug court program, because what that does is it doesn't take somebody that's just, you know, addicted to some type of narcotic and just ship them off into prison and forget about them. And what happens then is they become a better criminal. It keeps them from going to prison. We get a plea out of it, and what we do is we just hold sentencing. And if they go through all of our steps, and there's usually 18 to 24 months, I mean, it's not easy, then their cases are dismissed. But in that time, they're on what I told you, like a super duper probation. They're being randomly drug screened. And all these things, if they fail a drug test, well, they get a mark against them. And the marks gradually increase. You know, first time it's, all right, that's 24 hours community service. Second time, all right, that's 48 hours in jail. Then it's 5 days in jail. And it gradually increases, I think, until the 7th time, then they're kicked out. And you've already got their plea. So then you give them every opportunity in the world. So then you take their plea, and then they're sentenced at that time. So I guess maybe they kind of
that was very responsive.
Okay.
Thank you. Good attorney. All right, Mr. Harris. I mean, we're talking about, you know, obviously you can't do everything, right? We're talking about everything. So what would be your top issues in terms of crime that you would really be relentless at, and what can you kind of give on and have alternative ways of addressing it?
Well, any crime against any child is close to any attorney's heart, any law enforcement person's heart. However, any crime where somebody is hurt or is killed, that would take priority. Violent crime has got to be slowed down, and it's on the rise in every single county in this circuit, and that's according to the latest FBI uniform crime statistics. That's not my opinion, that's what it is. So that would be the priority. If you've got somebody that's the kind of person that's going to go out here and take another person's life, we got to get them off the street. They got to go, and they need to go to jail for a long time. And that's to keep everybody safe, all of us, you, me, all of us. The drug stuff, just like he was talking about, I'm a big proponent of a drug court program. Macon County started one down here, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and it's been very successful. And the one I know that we have in Chambers County up there, one of my law partners was actually one of the ones that was involved in it right from the start, and it's been going on for several years now. And it's like Mr. Duerr was saying, you get people who are basically addicts. They may have stolen something because they've got an addiction and they're trying to get money. That's a different kind of people than you are talking about somebody out here shooting somebody with an AK-47. And they need to be treated totally different. Totally different. Up there, getting back to the drug court thing, the recidivism rate with our drug court, the people who have made it through it, the recidivism rate is less than 2%. And that's just wonderful. I mean, you take somebody that's got an addiction and you give them that opportunity, and like he said earlier, they have to plea under plea to start with, they can get in that drug court program. So they've taken responsibility from the start. You give them that opportunity, and it's not an easy program. None of the drug programs are easy for these people. And what you see is if they take the initiative to make it all the way through those programs, they usually come out, they don't have the addiction anymore, and they're productive citizens. And it's got to be approached, the drug problem as kind of twofold. You're talking about the users, you're talking about the sellers, that's two different things. You're talking about the suppliers, that's a totally different thing. I've dealt with every one of them from the top to the bottom. Worked a case one time that stretched all the way from Homestead, Florida to the North Carolina border. And we put 122 folks in jail with that. Every one of them. Some of them still in there, still serving, and hope they never get out. Because they'll be right back in again if they want such a high level. And you can't approach it all as a one fix does all. You know, we're going to charge you with possession because it's a certain amount, but we're going to charge you with sale over here because you actually sold something. Well, the guy that's charged with the sale, he might be an addict on the street corner that's selling a rock to get his own rock. You know, and that's not in the same category as the guy that's importing stuff in from Colombia. And you've got to be able to broaden your perspective and look at that and go with that.
All right. I would like for you all, because of time, to kind of shorten your responses so I can get a few more questions in.
Yes.
Since you all obviously mirror each other in terms of your perspective, I want to talk about mental health. As you know, the jails have now, prisons have become the mental health facilities, that would reduce mental health facilities in the state. What's your approach to dealing with issues of mental health as it relates to criminal justice issues?
Depending on the type of crime that the person has committed, I've had people that were judged by the court or by the state doctors to be mentally incompetent. And my thing is, that's fine and good, but if they are of the nature that they cannot comprehend what they're doing, thus, in my eyes, creating a risk or a dangerous risk if they're not supervised or stay medicated to the public, and everybody, including myself, then, and I know the facilities are short now, and but we still do have a few, but that's the only option that I'm willing to let go is, okay, well, we'll reduce this charge, or I'll let you plead to a smaller charge, but you've got to go to this facility. If you don't have anybody that you can live with or you stay with that's going to watch over you and make sure you stay medicated, and we're just going to say that we trust you to do it, and you were trusted at one time and that's why you're here, that's not good enough for me. Because all it takes is that one time for them to come out and harm you, me, my 3-year-old child, and because they're room mentally incompetent, we can't do anything about it. And that's when you're going to start to get people saying, well, all right, well, I'm on that cuckoo then too if I happen to get in that situation. So it creates some type of domino effect where I know that you have to work with them in some way, but you can't just throw your hands up and say, okay, well, you're mentally incompetent, do what you want to do.
Mental incompetence is a big problem in our state and in this country. The jails have been the kind of holding place for mentally ill people. I guess we could agree that that is a problem. Now, what would you do to address that problem if elected as district attorney?
Well, there's only so much that the district attorney's office can address on that. The first problem with that is that probably for the last 8 years in a row in our state, our legislature has cut the budget of the mental health facilities in this state. That's the first problem and the biggest problem. Having said that, the DA can't change that. We've certainly lobbied with every legislator we need to get that done, you know, to get more funding for it. But the mental health problem is that you've got one group of folks that are off their medication, and they may be a bipolar person that could be absolutely a productive, fine person and never get in trouble if they maintain their medication. And you see that, I've experienced it in my own family, you know, that particular issue. And thank goodness my family was strong enough and we were financially stable enough that the family could handle it themselves. But a lot of these people come from very poor places. They don't have the family structure that my family had. And they're the people we've got to work with. And we've got to get them where they need to be. If you got other people that are historically have had a problem, it's a recurring thing, and there's always violence there, we've got to get them somewhere that's long-term, whether it be jail or whether it be Bryce Hospital or wherever we can get them to protect everybody else, those kind of people. And those are the exception and not the rule. But I've seen people in my law enforcement career that, you know, every 2 to 3 months we'd get an order from the court and go pick them up, and then they'd have to be carried to Bryce, you know, and they'd get them medicated and okay, and then they'd come back home, and 3 months later they're off the meds again. They didn't have that family structure. There was no money in those counties from the local mental health thing because they didn't have the money from the state to support them. So that is a very, very precarious situation. As a DA, we would do everything we could to try to work with every mentally ill person to get them the proper treatment they needed, whether it be in a facility, whether it be with a family member to make sure that they've stayed on their medication, and in the very extreme cases, to get them off the street where they can't hurt anybody.
The Children Defense Fund, I'm going to go back to you because I've always started with you, Mr. Duerr, and we're going to go with you, Mr. Harris. The Children Defense Fund talks about the school to prison pipeline, that there are many young people are now being incarcerated at very early ages, oftentimes for offenses or juvenile delinquent acts that could be dealt with other ways. How do you look at that, and what do you think needs to be done to mitigate the increase in juvenile incarceration?
Well, part of the problem with juvenile crime in general is a breakdown of the family unit in our country. And all of us suffer from that. I mean, every one of us can think of somebody, I'm sure, in our neighborhood or in our family where there's been a divorce and the child was affected by that and so forth. Juvenile crime, you will rarely see a juvenile going to prison. You will rarely see that. That can't happen as a matter of law, except in extreme cases. But, you know, we've got to do things. First of all, I'd like to see the law enforcement community get more involved in the schools.
Let me just push back just a little bit. They do transfer to adult court.
They can.
They can.
That would be only in the situation of a felony, and then that child would have to be certified as an adult by the court.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen just real easily and quickly. That's in pretty either where it's happened over and over again, and now they're 16, or if it's they've got a long juvenile record, now they've committed a murder or some sort of heinous crime. That's when you normally see them certified as an adult and do that. But the pipeline, I think, is more what they are learning and seeing as children. You know, by the time they get on up to 16, 17 years old, they're into more violent stuff, more serious crimes. And I think one of the things is that
because I want to get to what can be done because of time.
Well, that's where I was going.
Okay.
One of the things I think that could help that more than anything is to see police get more involved in the schools and with the kids and in community activities. I was invited here a couple of weeks ago to a forum on that very subject right here in this room. And I was asked to be there because of my law enforcement background and sat with the police panel, so a lot of political things. But anyway, it was amazing to hear. There were a lot of young people that came to that forum, and it was amazing to hear some of their thoughts toward the law enforcement people. And in the law enforcement people, it was kind of amazing to hear some of their thoughts. And it dawned on me that half of this is stuff that could be just worked out like that, but nobody's talking to each other. Nobody's communicating with each other. And that needs to be done. And, anything that the DA's office could do to facilitate that, I'd certainly be more than willing to do and happy to do, but that's sort of out of the realm of the jurisdiction of the DA.
Given that question, Mr. Duerr, what's your position on the school-to-prison pipeline? What do you think can be done to mitigate it?
Okay. I think, to me, in my opinion, the main problem is education. If, we'll just say, for example, in Alex City, we have what we call a Duerr program, and that's drug awareness, resistance education. Not resistance. Anyway, Duerr. It's the Duerr program. And that's what, kids, and now, it's sad to say, but that kids are taught that in the 6th grade. And it's sad that we've had to go that young to start this Duerr program, which teaches them the dangers about drugs and what all can happen if they go into that lifestyle. Well, I think, and I've said many times, that we need to continue that Duerr program. That Duerr program does not need to be a 6th grade class and then done. That Duerr program, if anything, needs to go at least through middle school, and I would like to see it eventually go all the way through high school. Now, how do we do that? I don't know. We have police departments all through the circuit that are already short-numbered, they're already understaffed. How do we get somebody that's going to do that? Because there's always, our class is taught by the Duerr officer, who's a certified sworn officer. How do you get the money to come in to be able to hire enough officers to be able just to stay in the schools for that amount of time? I would do everything I could to try to find the resources available to, at first, at least increase that Duerr program through middle school, which would be 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And then, hopefully, if it was shown such positive results, then you could get a little more money coming in and maybe get that and go all the way through high school. I think that's the main thing, because you're going to have people that no matter what you do or what you say to them or how much trouble they get in, they're still going to go back and they're going to do the drugs. And then that's going to lead to the other crimes that we mentioned, and that's what's going to eventually lead to prison. So I think if we start educating them young and continue to educate them throughout their adolescent and younger years, then that's where we're going to start to curb our problem and probably hopefully get them down some.
All right, I'm going to, I have a couple more questions, but I want to go to the audience now and give you an opportunity to ask some questions. I see Attorney Bulls in the back, and then we'll go to Ms. Austin. You want to make a statement, and then of course Chief, you will go. We'll go in that order. State your name. We'll go in that order, going from Attorney Bulls, and then continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is George Bulls. I practice private practice here in Tuskegee. I have for the last 7 years, and the bulk of my practice is criminal defense, appointed work right here out of Macon County. And in those 7 years, I've seen the difference as far as working with cases that an assistant district attorney can have on a community when they are a part of that community. And for a few years now, we've had an assistant district attorney that was not from this community. If either of you, or one of you will be elected, but would you see it as a priority of yours to ensure that your assistants would either reflect the population of the different counties, or a person that has the ability to empathize with the citizens that are going to be getting in trouble? Because I see that as a way of clearing up the docket when you, Mr. Harris talked about the slam dunk cases. Those are the ones you need to plea out. Too often, those slam dunks, the assistant district attorney would use that over our head because they knew they had a slam dunk and wouldn't give a fair plea. So I think that comes from that person maybe not being of the community or knowing the people in the area. So would you require your ADAs to be from the area or at least live in our 5th Circuit?
Let's go with Mr. Harris and then we'll go with you, Mr. Duerr.
Okay. Absolutely is the answer to your question. One of the things that I want to do not only is bring in an ADA that's going to be from the community if you can find somebody. You know, that's part of the problem. You can't just go out and hire somebody. They have to go through what we went through to go to law school and become a lawyer and get that license, just like you and I both have done. But it's always better if you've got the community involved and if you've got an ADA that's from that community. Absolutely, that's correct. One of the things I want to do also, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, was to expand the investigative capabilities of the office. I want to have an assigned investigator in every county that's from that county, lives there, going to be there every day, work with your police department, your sheriff's department, with all your lawyers that do the defense work, that's right there every day. And I think that will bring the community closer to the office. And that's another way of doing the same thing you're talking about with having an ADA here. And what I would probably do, and I don't know that any of the assistants that are there now are going to leave. I don't know who's going to stay, who's not. Probably a lot of them won't want to work with me because we're going to tighten things up a notch. If, for instance, if the Macon County Assistant DA decided that she was going to leave and not be here, I would probably solicit thoughts from you, some lawyers I know here who are very competent lawyers that I know, and get some recommendations. You know, we would want input from y'all. Now, that doesn't mean I might not hire somebody other than who you recommended, but that would be done. And like your municipal judge here, your district judge, I would like to know, who do y'all recommend? Who do you think you can work with that would make your job easier as well as ours easier? And do that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Again, I know this is probably kind of getting boring, but I'm going to basically agree with what Mr. Harris said because, and I mean, I've actually had attorneys already approaching me and wanting to know, well, if you win, you know, I got so-and-so that should be real good in Macon County. And I said, whoa, pump the brakes. You know, I'm all for it. And like I've told them in the past, that if it comes to that point and if I'm elected and the current ADA doesn't want to stay, then I absolutely would like to sit down with the attorneys that are more familiar with whoever would apply than I am, because like I said, I don't come down here very often because I'm always in Elliott City, and our terms are literally sometimes even overlap, and that's why I never get to come down here to help whoever the ADA is normally, because I know 2 years ago terms were on top of each other. My first day was Macon County's first day, and most of the time though it's my second Monday is their first Monday, but it just never works out where I never get to come down here. So I would certainly solicit advice from the local attorney or local bar association to see who do they, you know, help me make this decision. And I agree also with what Bill said, that, you know, I would love to have an investigator elected in every office. But, you know, over the past 6.5, 7 years now, they've cut our budget almost in half, from about $850 to $450. We've had 4 people in the DA's office over the past 6 years that's retired that we have not even been able to replace. Hopefully, luckily they did retire, or somebody was going to have to go, because we just don't have the money to do it, and they continue to cut our budget like that every time. Hopefully, you know, that's going to change eventually, and we're going to start going back up again instead of coming down, because when I was first hired, we did have 4 investigators in this circuit. and it worked out a whole lot better than right now. We've basically got one full-time and one part-time. Well, I say part-time. He's investigator slash pretrial diversion. So he's not even a full-time investigator because he has other duties. So we really only have at this point one full-time investigator, and I'd love to be able to increase that number, but there's just at the moment no way possible.
Okay. All right, Ms. Austin, I think you had a question, and then we'll go to you, Chief.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Phyllis Austin. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta. Given the current climate throughout the United States with minorities feeling that the police and court systems are against them, what can you do from the DA's office to change that so that we're more positive about not only the police, but especially about the court system?
Okay. Thank you for your question, Ms. Austin. I think I've stated this, I was at that same forum with Mr. Harris a couple of weekends ago with the community and the police involved, and the main problem with me is because in small places like this, and this whole circuit is small towns. You know, there's no big, large cities in this whole circuit. Alexander City being the largest one, and it's not very big at all. Everybody knows everybody. And, you know, right now, every year we have a national night out, just one night a year, and that's where you have the police, all the law enforcement agencies, they come out, and it's the local park, and everybody comes out, and there's grilling and games for the kids, and everybody just gets a chance just to talk to the law enforcement. I think that needs to happen way more often than one time a year. I would suggest, even if it had to be something, you know, sponsored by the DA's office or the Sheriff's Department, if he would agree, because I believe you could easily get your local businesses to donate food, you know, hot dogs or hamburgers to cook, but at least, you know, once every quarter, even all the way up to once a month, because if you get out, if the community will get out and with law enforcement and meet and greet and talk and get to know each other, then you get to that point where you don't have that fear on one side, the law enforcement officer walking up, not knowing what he's going to when he makes a stop. Is this person armed? Are they, you know, do I need to walk up prepared? You don't have that fear, number two, from the person that's in the car being stopped. You know, what am I supposed to do? Or what do I need to do to make sure I don't get shot? Because they know each other. And, you know, everybody, and it's like you do in your neighborhood. You know what cars go by, you know who it is, and you probably know it before they round the curve. That's Miss Jones coming, I know her car. And I think that's a big thing that would help bring community and law enforcement together, is to have those types of national night outs or just any type of grilling, cooking, meet and greets where everybody just gets together, you have don't worry about any problems, and just have a good time. Fellowship.
The elephant in the room is also national. It's the relationship between the African American community and law enforcement in terms of people being killed.
Right.
Do you believe that because of the symbiotic relationship between the district attorney's office and law enforcement, that you can be objective in prosecuting police when you depend so much on them for the effectiveness of your
Okay. I believe that I can, absolutely. I have actually even, just not too long ago, prosecuted a police officer, and he's now serving about 96 years. With that aside, though, you know, if you have a local law enforcement shooting, well, that agency's not going to handle that. You know, we had one in another city, I say 5 years ago. The state comes in, you know, the state ABI, and they're the ones that works that case. And when that happened, nobody in my office was ever allowed to do anything, not even come on scene the night it happened, nothing. They don't want any type of visual that, you know, well, we're helping the local guys because here's the local ADA on scene. Wouldn't let it happen. And then, you know, as with every other case, it is brought to a grand jury, and we let all sides come in and do that testifying, and that grand jury, I'm sure as some of y'all may be familiar, is selected from a group of the peers from that area. You know, my Alex City grand jury is composed of Alex City residents. And So I don't think that we really ever have to worry about getting to the level of what the media is showing today in any of these small communities. Because if you realize, if you kind of look around all of the police shootings that we've had where they've turned into the riots and it's been made such a spectacle by media, is the larger cities. And I think that is in turn due somewhat, although I think it's very small, to the fact that everybody kind of knows everybody in the small community.
So you ultimately do the prosecution, is that correct?
Sometimes. There is times when the state investigating agency makes the decision that if they deem our office, the DA's office, too close to the matter to where they don't think that we could be biased toward one side or the other, then they would bring in the AG's office, which is the other state.
What if they don't decide that? What if they say you can? Would you be willing to send another district attorney, assistant district attorney to a county other than somebody who has to work with police officers every day?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Harris has to say about that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to do that, but I want to make sure that we have a conversation on this, right? The point of the matter is, and this is the point that I was making earlier, the police work very closely with the DA.
Right.
It becomes a strained relationship oftentimes if you're doing that, if you're prosecuting. Would you be willing to send another district attorney from another area, assistant district attorney, to prosecute in another county?
Okay. Is your question, say, if there was a police shooting here in Macon County, could I send the Chambers County ADA from my office down here? Okay. I think if it's determined to where there's such a relationship between the officer, the law enforcement agency, and say the ADA that would be in Macon County in my office, then that's going to include every ADA that's in my office. If they see that, well, they have a relationship with the Macon County ADA, well, that means they have a relationship with the 5th Circuit DA's office. And I would reach out to an outside circuit, say Lee County, or go the other way, Coosa and Clay County Circuit, and get them to send somebody down for me to do that.
Okay. All right. Mr. Harris, you're in a unique position. You was law enforcement. So obviously, so you obviously have a kind of brotherhood. I was law enforcement too. We have brotherhood now. How do you deal with that issue? Because this is very prevalent in the country.
Yes, it is.
Good.
It can be answered with one word: integrity. Integrity. The DA's office is no better than the man that's serving there and the integrity he has. If somebody shoots somebody and takes somebody's life, if it's a police officer and he wrongly does it, he ought to go to jail, just like if it's somebody on the street that shot somebody. Should make no difference. Every single case should be handled that way, without regard to social status, to money, to race, to gender. You look at the case and it is what it is. That's one of my favorite sayings. It is what it is. And you address it as what it is. And you do it with integrity. You be honest about it. I have no problem sending a police officer to jail if he is wrong and he has committed a murder. He's no different than somebody over here in a government housing project that committed a murder. They're a murderer. They killed somebody. And something's got to be done with it. Now, having said that, in the past, I was sort of criticized here a few years ago because there was a local police department in my home county where my office is, right down the street from where I practice. And they brought in a guy from out of state somewhere to be the new chief. And he was just a bad apple. Just all there is to it. He was just a bad guy. He is staying with juveniles. He had a cage built in the police department, and he would actually put these children in the cage. All right? One of them was a special needs child. He would do this with no authority from the juvenile judge, no authority whatsoever. And so people got upset about it. They talked to me about it. We did a little investigation, and we found out that what was happening here was really very minor compared to things where he had come from. And I'll tell you what I did. I sued him. I had 3 clients, 3 kids that were locked up, sued them, and part of settling the lawsuit, a lot of big money type thing, that chief got gone. They didn't renew his contract about 6 weeks later. and I think he's back on the West Coast somewhere where he belongs, and our kids are safer as a result of that. So I'm not a sue-happy, crazy person, but when it's appropriate, by God, it's appropriate. And in that situation, it was. So I not only am telling you that I have no problem prosecuting the police officer, I have done it. And you're right, there is a brotherhood there. I mean, I feel like brotherhood, but I don't feel brotherhood means that you condone somebody when they do the wrong thing.
Okay. All right, Chief, we're going to give you the last word, and then we're going to. We had two more. Chief, I'm going to give you a word. Because of time, I want you to make sure that you can frame the issue and get to your questions as quickly. And if you all can kind of get to, you're not preachers, but you kind of long-winded. I don't guess. But anyway, so I want to get to the responses. Go ahead, Chief. Go ahead.
As a retired law enforcement professional, I believe that the criminal justice system in Alabama is broken. And if money is being cut from your budgets, why aren't the AGs in the communities around the state raising hell and informing the people so that the pressure can be put on the legislators to make a difference? And my question is, in addition to that, can you be independent with integrity as you function as law enforcement, because so many poor people are being sent to jail and etc. because of plea bargaining for crimes that's lesser than they were accused of, that they may not even be guilty of. But because of fear and ignorance, they cop out to a lesser plea. Their lives are affected or ruined from that day forward.
Okay. All right, Mr. Duerr, we're going to start with you, sir, and then we're going to go to you as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Get to
all right. All I can say is that, as I have always done in Elliott City, in my court system, and that if elected, I will make sure that that continues throughout the entire circuit, is that I know that there's always, every case is different, and you have to look at it to say, well, all right, does this case deserve to negotiate with the plea to, lower the charge, or is this a case that, it was heinous enough that we're not going to reduce the charge? And I would like to say that I have a great working relationship with all of the defense attorneys in my area, Elliott City and Dadeville area, that to where, we can sit down and we can have this conversation and we can talk it out, and we can, most of the time, 95% of the time, come to a conclusion as to where what's best for my office and what's best for their client together. And I think that can continue. It may take a little longer in the other circuits once we decide who's staying or who's going, or if we hire new people, but I think that can always happen. The first part of your question, I'm sorry I answered the second first, but why aren't people being made aware of the reduction in money? And all I can say is that every time I've ever seen the district attorney now, my boss, Mr. Paul Jones, on any type of television station in Elliott City in the morning, that's the only thing he really ever complains about is, we don't have any money, we don't have any money, we don't have any money. And he frequently goes down to Montgomery to the legislature and begs them for any kind of extra money. Please quit taking money from us and give us money. And I would certainly continue that process to do whatever possible to try to get more money into the DA's office.
Okay. Mr. Harris?
I'd like to quickly address the money issue he's talking about. The DA's office is not solely dependent on what they get from general fund. I've got the last 3 audits from the DA's office here. There are 5 discretionary funds. Those funds come a percentage, every ticket paid in every county, a percentage of that money goes to the DA's office. There are 5 discretionary funds in the 5th Circuit right now. And we're talking about millions of dollars. Now, I'm not saying that that's even enough to do the things we're talking about doing. But that goes back to what I said to start with at the first part of this, about the efficiency of the office. Anywhere we can save a dime in that office, where we can shift money to other programs that we can get more bang for our buck for, like some of these youth programs and things that we're talking about, we would do that. Now, to address your question, I do not believe in overcharging. And when I say overcharging, I don't believe in charging a crime that's up here just so I can try to get you to plead the one that's down here. I believe in getting pleas because you got the evidence, solid evidence, hard evidence to prove your case, win your case, and that's what you charge on. You don't make it more or less than what it is. It is what it is, again, as I said earlier. Now, some cases, you know, and especially cases where you got a first-time offender, it's not a violent crime, certainly you got more discretion and latitude there to do that, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. That's part of our system. I mean, like Mr. Bulls back there will tell you, he said he did primarily all defense stuff. You know, on those kind of cases, if you didn't offer a plea on stuff, nothing would ever get done. We'd all be waiting 10 years to go to court. And so that's a part of it, but it's got to be proportionate. It's got to be proportionate. You don't want to send a man off like you were talking about for years and years on, on a minor drug offense just because it fell within the statute where you could get a bigger sentence. Send him to drug court if that's what he needs. If he's got an addiction problem, let's get him what he needs. Punishment should be proportionate. So, no, I don't believe in trying to send somebody off just to see how long you can get them off. It's got to be proportionate. And money is an issue, but there's a little more money there than I think the general public realizes in the DA's office.
Okay. Dr. Baldwin, you have the last word.
Okay, good evening. I just wanted to know, as you know, there's such thing as rich justice, poor justice, white justice, and black justice. Do you believe in equal justice, as in the case with a guy in Texas who killed, a teenager who killed 4 people, but because he was rich, he got off? Do you believe in equal sentencing for the person?
I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Baldwin, because I think they call that affluenza.
Yeah.
He's rich. No.
I think that when I read that or saw that on TV, I was sick to my stomach when I saw that. I believe, like I've stated before, Mr. Harrison stated before, I don't care if it's black, white, female, male, rich, poor. I treat everybody that I come in contact with. And like I said, I know that there's been some problems in other counties of this circuit. I can't speak for them. I can only speak for the way I conduct my business in my courthouse, and I say the LA City courthouse. I can't go to the grocery store now where I don't have, it could be black, white, male, female, rich, poor. There's always somebody coming up to me and says, thank you. I didn't like you 5 years ago. You wouldn't give in. You gave me chance after chance, and I kept messing it up. And finally, you had enough, and you said, no, you're not doing it anymore. You're going to go to jail for a little while. And they'll tell me then, I hated you then, but once I had to go do that, I've realized now that you've saved my life. I treat everybody that I come in contact with, I don't care, black, white, green, red, purple, I treat them the same, and I always treat them fairly, and I think that's why that they always come back and speak to me, they're friendly with me. I've got people that I have, prosecuted before, has come up to me over the last 8 months, and they say, look, because of you, I can't vote for you, but I'm going to go help you any way I can. And to me, that speaks volumes, because even though that they may have gone out and been prosecuted or pled or found guilty of a felony and can't vote, they still want to do what they can to help me, but with me being part of the reason that they can't vote. I think that speaks volumes to it shows how I've treated people in the past.
Mr. Harris, you got the last word, sir.
Again, it goes back to what I said earlier, and that's integrity. Justice cannot work unless it works the same for everybody. If it doesn't work the same for everybody, then it doesn't work for any of us. I have some very strong beliefs about that. I have spent my entire life conducting myself with that belief. That won't change if I go in as a DA.
Keep standing because you got your last word. Take your last shot, your last appeal. Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate, first of all, y'all inviting me down here. I think this has been a great forum, and I appreciate it. I would like for everybody to consider, giving me your vote. Got a good man over here that's running against me. I know that. I'm clear about that. And as I said earlier, I think that the race between us should be a model for other races. We have not said a single word about each other the whole time. We have some different views on the best way to handle some things, but our issues are even very simple. And both of that, I think, speaks, again, to integrity and character. That's what it's about. And I'd like for you to think that. This is a solid Democrat county, and I've been criticized for even coming to Macon County because I'm on the Republican ticket. But my thoughts are, if I can't ask you for your vote, how can I expect you to vote for me? If I won't talk with people, how can I expect anyone? And we spend a lot of time down here. We've actually been down here a lot. And I feel that Macon County, in some respects, in the Fifth Circuit, has been kind of left behind. I do. And I'm not comfortable with that. I'll just tell you, I'm not comfortable with that. If you elect me DA, I'm going to be DA in every county for everybody. I will be here full time. That's one of the problems, I think, with the efficiency issue in the DA's office now, that our current assistant DA, and especially since his last term, and he knew he was going to retire, he's been gone a lot, not been around. I will be here in every county, every day. Will be, well, not every day in every county, but I mean every day I will be accessible. I will be here one day a week when I can, and one day in Tallapoosa County, one day in Chambers, one day in Randolph, but I will always be accessible to the people. That's who elects you, that's who works for you, and when you forget that, then it's time to go on, and I won't forget. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Duerr, you got the last word, sir.
All right, thanks, sir. Again, almost kind of just exactly like Mr. Harris said, I know that y'all seen the last 3 presidential debates, and you finally like, all right, we got a local debate, and we're going to go at it, and then you sit there and you're thinking, well, these guys are just boring. they agree with each other. What is this? But, and it all goes back to, like he said, integrity. A word I like to use is reputation. My grandfather used to always tell me, look, reputation is something you can build up your entire life, and you can throw it all away in 5 seconds. And that's what I've always attempted to do, is to keep my reputation positive. And the main thing in that is, like I told you earlier, is treating everybody fair. I agree with Bill, and he said that, Macon County has kind of been shoved to the back burner a little bit here lately with whoever the assistant DA was at the time, or is now at the time. But, don't hold that against me. Even though I'm in the DA's office now, I can't stress enough to all these other counties in the circuit. I'm in Elliott City, and I can hardly ever get out of there. And if you know anybody in that city, call and ask them. I would hope that they have something positive to say about it, because I'm there every day. I'm usually one of the first ones in the office every day. Here, starting this week, and to let you know that when this race has been going, I've shown up sick, been feeling terrible, but I knew I had to have the days at the end of this year to take off to be able to campaign. So I've been off here in the last week and a half or so, but it all comes down to integrity, reputation, however you say it. I will, if elected, make sure that I can surround myself with ADAs that's going to be as close to as full integrity and have a great reputation as I do. And if they not, or if they don't, then I'm going to get rid of them, and I'll replace them with somebody that, and eventually, you're going to find 5 assistants to cover all this area that's going to be as good as you, and we're going to get this circuit in every county back on top of where it deserves to be.
Join me in thanking Mr. All right, well, that's going to do it for the forum. I'd like to thank you for giving me an opportunity to moderate both debates. I'd like to thank Chairman Maxwell and Mr. Dillman for the first debate, and we'd like to thank Mr. Duerr and Mr. Harris for the second debate, and thank you for coming. Now we'd like to have final remarks from Delta Sigma Theta. We'd like to start with Ms. Austin, and then we'll end up with Ms. Taylor.
I think all of us will agree that when the citizens are informed, they make better decisions. And so we thank all of you for being here, for answering our call, for coming through deer-infested roads to be here with us tonight. We thank you for that. We also thank you, the citizens of Macon County, for coming to support us as well.
Absolutely.
The year was 1965. The city was Selma, Alabama. The place was the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Please vote. Please vote. We don't endorse as a sorority, but we do say you must go out and vote for somebody. If you want to write your own name in, just go vote. Our president is here and will give our closing remarks. I think we're so happy that you all came. We thought we ran out of programs. That's a good thing. But sorry.
Hello.
I just want to say your closing name.
It's Rosemary
Taylor.
I just want to thank our candidates for taking the time to come out to let us know what your views are on the issues. I want to thank Mr. Omar Neal because for your agreeing to be our moderator and helping us to keep on time, but also helping us to think about the questions that you posed. It gave me a lot of thought about how I choose candidates now. It's not just about a name on a piece of paper, but we have the opportunity to see 4 candidates that we have a choice in voting for. And we thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the work that you've done. To the citizens that have come out, I hope that something was said tonight that will help you in your choice.